What's up, guys and gals? Today we have a Penn Jigmaster 500 that will show you how to break down, service, and reassemble with some tips and tricks along the way. So we're going to get started by removing this side. I'm going to leave all this assembled so I can use that as leverage to undo this. I'm undoing that knob right there. I'm just turning this knob backwards to loosen it up. When I get it loosened all the way up, I'm going to pull it out, use this handle as leverage to rotate this. It turns about maybe an eighth of a turn to just pull it out. Most everything's on the right side, so we'll do this side first and then continue on with the reel. I'm going to undo that screw and then that nut. Turn that backwards, as you can see. And then to remove this, pop it off backwards as well. Kind of pull that up. Shouldn't be anything under there. Then you can back that off. You have a sleeve under there, and that's about it. Now we're going to undo those 4 screws on the outside, that piece as well. This will stay inside there. So we'll start with this. Just kind of loosen that up. Pull that out. Just pop that off. That deals with that spring right there on the inside that you can see. I'm going to undo those 4 screws on the outside. Notice I'm keeping my hand on the bottom of this so nothing comes shooting or flying anywhere. Now we're just going to drop it down, maybe with some assistance from the sleeve right there. Let it come out. Notice there's a spring right there. I'm not going to show you how that looks afterwards versus showing it to you now. But just know that there's a little ring on the end of it. Now we can pull this straight up. Pull the dog up. And we have the jack, the yoke, a couple of eccentric springs here. And we have the lever with the spring next to it. We also have that bearing on the outside that we can remove just by backing it up. And that's pretty much it there. This is the drag stack. Sometimes it comes out. So you have a washer that's under the gear. Drag washer, metal, aired, that, and a little spring that goes on top. So I'm going to get this part cleaned up, work on this, and then go to the other side of the reel. Some of the things I will use to clean this reel up will be a paper towel, as you see me using already as it is, Q-tips, possibly some corrosion X to break some grease down, and I will be using some 4/0 steel wool to clean these metal pieces off. So I'll give you an example right now. There's a little bit of debris and stuff on there that if you rub it, it doesn't really come off. But if you use this, it makes it nice and pretty. Just like that. Alright, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, welcome back. First, let me go over the grease and the oil that I'll be using. I'll be using for the drags, Cal's drag grease. For the gears, I'll be using Penn reel grease. And for the oil, I'll be using Relax. First thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to put the eccentric back in. So let me go ahead and grease this up. I do also grease inside there where the threads are. And then for the spring, I take a little bit of grease, add a little bit to the tip right there, then I'm just going to stick it in the hole. Now this spring, or the end of the spring, is going to be fitting inside that little notch right there. I'm gonna take the spring, stick it inside here. Make sure the spring's on the top side so it doesn't fall below here. Then we're just gonna push it down inside that hole and kind of put that in that general position. Now I'm gonna keep my finger over it, take my lever. I'm gonna start from this side, looking like this, and turning it to about right there. Now we can take this, flip it over, key it up over that top part of the eccentric, and then screw it in. At some point while you're screwing this down, it may slip out on you, and that's fine. We're going to reposition it in a sec when we get down closer to the bottom. We just kind of want to get the screw started. Alright, so we're started there. That's the position we want it in. And you can tell that position because it doesn't really move when you go back and forth. And now we're just going to tighten it down. We're going to go snug, but not over tighten it. Then you double check it to make sure it works. Make sure everything is positioned properly, which this is. Now I'm going to leave it in this position here, which is the open position. I want them kind of as far apart as I can. Put a little bit of grease around there. Now we can also grease inside that threads, those threads for the bearing on this side, kind of like that. And now we can go ahead and screw that in after we stick some oil inside there. Now we're going to go ahead and do this section, and we're going to work on the dog first. So I'm going to put a little bit of grease around there, none on the points on this sleeve, but we kind of go around the rest of it. Just a light coat, as you can see. Now for the spring, you'll notice that there's a hooked end on the bottom. One is closer to the bottom than the other. We want the closest to the bottom portion of that hooked end facing down. So it'll be facing down towards this bridge. I'm going to stick this on first. Push it all the way down to the bottom. Kind of like that. A little bit of grease on the dog, just on the outside plate. Kind of like that. Not really in a tip. And now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the dog and kind of angle it on top of that. Hopefully you can see how that's set up. Now I'm going to position the spring behind it, just like that. Hold my finger over it, and then rotate this. Let me do it so you can see it. Rotate this off of the ratchet, kind of like that. And there it is. You can double check it to make sure it works, and we can see it's working. Leave it locked in like that. Now we're going to take this under the main gear washer, stick that on, add some grease around this. And you don't need a whole bunch of grease on this. A little bit on the bottom, none inside there. Drop that in. And now we're going to add some grease to those drag washers. I'm going to put a light coat on each one of these. Now the first thing to go on will be one of our drag washers, then a keyed washer, drag washer, the eared washer, which will go into those two little slots, or the tabs will go into those two little slots on each side that you'll see on your reel. Then the final drag washer and keyed washer. This goes on top. I like to put it on with the curved facing down. And that's set up just like it should be. Let's go ahead and grease the pinion gear. You do want to make sure you get grease inside that little channel where the yoke will be riding. But I do just kind of grease the entire thing. Now we can grease the yoke and the jack. Get some inside right there. Same thing for the jack. I'm going to get some inside this little groove right here and that little groove right there. So now we're going to take the yoke and the jack and set those things up. The yoke is going to go, or the yoke and the pinion will be sitting like that, curved with the gear side facing down. Take our springs, stick them in the holes that they should be in, which are those two right there. Rest it over it, just like that. Push down slightly. Get this over it. Make sure that larger side goes in first, then bring it over and rest it over that post, looking just like that. Now I'm going to leave it in this position. Normally I'll put that in the engaged position to lock things down, but for this reel we're going to keep it the way it is. Now I'm going to turn it this way, take this, flip it over, and I'm just going to go straight down on it. I'm not going to rotate, I'm not going to do any of that stuff. I'm just going to push it straight down. So just here, through it, on, like so. Move that pinion, get everything flat and situated. We want to make sure everything's lined up before we push down. Now when I get to this point, what I'm looking here for is to see if anything's blocking it. Normally what happens is this yoke, this jack will kind of get off position or something. But if you look at this, it's just the bottom side is flat, but the top side's up, and that's just simply because this is in the free spool position, so I'm going to put it in the engaged position to help lower that. Then find the post that this should go over, like that, and now we should be in business. Now at this point, before I go any further, I'm going to check to make sure the dog is still working. Notice I'm pressing against the bridge to do that. And it is, so we're good. I'm going to go ahead and screw these things in now. I'm still supporting the base of the bridge. The fully threaded screws go on the top, and the partially threaded go on the bottom. And I'll show you what that looks like when I get the first couple in. That's the fully threaded. This is the partially threaded going through the yoke spring. And now they're set up. Alright, I tightened those two down, but again I'm going to double check that dog to make sure it's working. Alright, now we'll finish up by putting the other two screws in. Snugging them down. Notice I'm going to kind of an X sort of pattern. And we're good with that. Now I'm going to take some oil, stick that inside right there. Rotate a couple times, kind of work that down inside there. Take some grease, add to the threads right there. And I'm also going to add some grease inside this hole. We can also add a couple of dabs of grease around the post, around that screw or the threads on that. Some inside here. Definitely some inside here. Some around the bottom, like that. Some on the top, and some over that hole where that set screw will be going inside. Now I'll take my sleeve, drop that over, just like so. Take this, screw it down. Don't cross thread it, so make sure you're getting it on straight when you're putting it on there, which that one is. If you get stuck like that, I take my tweezers, stick it on the two flat sides, then I'll work it down. And while I'm doing that, I'm still double checking to make sure it's not cross threaded. Once we get that down, we can go ahead and put the handle on and then lock it down with this screw. Make sure the handle keys over the section of the sleeve that's squared off. I'm just going to snug this down. I'm going to try to line one of those curves in the and this screw right here with that hole so I can put this set screw in. Snug it down. Let's test it out, make sure everything works the way it should. There's your free spool. There's engaged. You can hear it. Everything seems proper right there. Alright, now to break this side down, or all these pieces here, I'm going to take this off. Undo those two nuts. Put your finger on the back side of this so it stays in place while you unscrew this. Pull that out, there's nothing to it, just that. And now we're going to do those 6 screws right there. And the same deal for the other side. Now I left those 2 screws separate from these to show you that they're different lengths. Now the screws on this side are a different style altogether. And for this side, you're essentially looking at the same sort of thing. These are a little bit longer than the stand screws. Alright, last thing we can do here is take this out. Just unscrewing it. You have a spring and you have the bearing. And that's it. This is pinned in, this has no screw, so this stays in place. Alright, same kind of deal as clean this stuff up, so I'll do that and come back to you guys. Alright, welcome back. Let's go ahead and do the left plate first. I'm just going to add a little bit of grease around the click spring and the clicker. Just some on top, none really in the bottom, or on that tip right there. But I'm going to work it back and forth to make sure that we are in good position. A little bit of oil there, a bit of oil at the base right there. Then just kind of go back and forth. Alright, now we can do some oil inside here. A little bit of grease around the threads. Some grease around these threads. And let's screw that in. Not all the way in, but kind of flush with the plate. Now we can get to the reel seat. Add some grease inside there, some in there. You don't need to do any here or here, but you can if you want to. When I get to these pieces here, I'm going to add some oil inside there. So I will also add some grease around the base or the shoulder on here. Then let's stick these through. You can go in any way you want, but I'm so used to putting things towards the flat side of the stand. That's how I'm going to have it. Take some oil, rub it along it, and secure it. Let's go ahead and snug these down. And now we can take this side. We're going to start off with this. Those 2 wider gaps at the bottom is the ones that will be facing or sitting like that for the stand. I'm going to stick a little bit of oil there and there. Stick 2 of the shorter screws in, which is this one and the other. Kind of stand it up like this. Line it up and then screw on it. And same thing for the other one. Now we can take our braces here, add some oil, can get those secured. Now we can go ahead and snug these down. And more of the same for the other side. I'm going to add oil to all of these first. Then we'll get this plate looking just like that. Now we can go ahead and add some grease around right there. Some around here. Around the post. Now let's go ahead and line this up, stick that in, and get this side on there. When I stick that in like that, notice that my screw hole is right there. Let me add a little bit of oil to right there as well. Get that to the bottom of it, somewhere around there. You'll feel it drop in when it's in the right spot, then rotate it up. Then screw it in. Let's go do a quick test on this, make sure it works. Free spool works nicely. That works excellent. Let's see the drag. Okay, can't hold it anymore. That feels good. Let's check out the clicker. Nice and loud. I think that's all we need to test. Alright guys, if you found the video useful, hit that thumbs up button. If you appreciate content like this, consider subscribing to the channel and spreading the word about it. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.